Hello and welcome back. You're watching the Merdeka Award Roundtable. We're talking about the Spirit of Merdeka, nurturing visionaries. Now, I posed the question before we went to break, and what's all this got to do with nurturing visionaries? And I think for that we have to come to you, Encik Medan. The Merdeka Awards is very particular. It looks at independence and says, you know, it's more than just sovereignty. It's about the liberation of the spirit. It's about the liberation of the mind. So I'm taking it that this award then looks for individuals, looks for people that do exactly that.
Yes, thank you very much. I think the Merdeka spirit, the idea is to recognize and reward Malaysians, individuals, organizations who have contributed to Malaysia. And it seeks to promote thought leadership and a culture of excellence and a worldview. So what we're doing today is, in the Merdeka Award, is to ensure that we focus on some of the elements that we think is important for the nation going forward. Okay, if I would like to quote something that what the late, our first Prime Minister, Tunku Abdul Rahman, said, independence is indeed a milestone, but it's only the threshold to high endeavor. I call upon you to dedicate yourself to work and strive with hand and brain to create a new nation. So the expectation is that we build on what they have achieved in 1957. And what is important for us is what do we do now. Okay, we can look back to history and understand the lesson of history. We can look forward and understand what's the vision for tomorrow. The important thing, what do we do now? So we need to be focused on the issues that are important. We must do the right thing. We must make the right choices now. Because what we do today will influence what goes tomorrow. So that is the spirit behind this Merdeka Award. We want to recognize people who have demonstrated these qualities. And you'll be surprised that some of the winners, they're not really well known in the normal sense of the word. But if you look at what they have done, what they achieved, then you know they have done a lot of things for the nation. Even at the national level, even at the global level. So that is why we are very excited about this Merdeka Award, and we want people to discuss and talk about the right thing. That's our contribution to the Merdeka spirit.
Right, recognizing some of the thought leaders, because some of these people are not necessarily the ones who are going around banging a drum saying, look at me,
exactly.
But they're doing that. Well, let's talk to someone who's been there, who is there and living that life. Professor Harith, you know, it's amazing. You're known internationally, and yet, I do apologize if it sounds, if it offends, but there are very few people outside of, the circle of physics and scientists and all that really know that, they have someone in their own backyard who's achieved such wonderful and great things. But the question for you is that, how does one cultivate the kind of thinking that propels you to excellence? I mean, we've heard all the catchphrases, paradigm shift, the thinking out of the box, and so on and so forth, and yet you just went and did it. Was it as simple as that?
We are very new. In fact, if you look into the history of Malaysia, normally if you look in the early days, we are stronger in the arts field, like history, like Tan Sri Khoo King, a very renowned historian. He did pose me a question. He did make a statement before we come to the show just now. He was saying that many Menteri Besar, Chief Minister are from the history department. He did ask me, where are all the physicists? There's no minister of that, no minister yet who are a physicist or a scientist. But you must bear in mind, science was started a bit late in this country. It's not 1954. Science started about 1970s, where the emphasis was given to science stream, science education. So now we are taking pride of the advancement of science in this country. If you look the last couple of years, many scientific community, good doctors winning the Merdeka Award, and you find that people in other fields like chemistry winning Merdeka Award. So science people are slowly taking shape and winning many awards. And if you look into publication, in 1960s, in terms of publication, you hardly see any publication. Of course, we may have some good books by Tan Sri Khoo Kim, this one exceptional figure. But on the general perspective, the number of publications that we get, book returns in the Malaysian community are very limited, are very small in number. So we do not fare very well in terms of publication as compared to advanced country. But in 1980s, you find that there is a rapid rise of publication in the scientific world actually. So Malaysia has catch up in science field. I think in the year 2000, in the 21st century, I'm very sure Malaysian scientific community will play a bigger role in
what
the global.
What caused that change? Was it a change in thinking that we said we can do it too?
Yeah, because there is a need of science. Of course, I'm not saying that humanities or history are not important. It's a very simplistic thought actually. But if you look what around here, the show that we have now, what make this show happen are due to the scientific breakthrough. Communication, you have lighting, you have camera, high definition camera, you have good microphone that does not need cable, wirelessly communicating. Those are all science. We should be grateful to the development of science and technology that makes our life better actually. Of course, humanities are important, but science play a bigger role in life actually. And this I want to touch just now about the, of course, Tan Sri was saying that there is no feeling among the young now, the youngster. I'm not young, but I think quite close to most of the panel. Yeah. But when I look at the young people, you have to be fair to them, you know. Even if you look into global, if you look into Japan, Japan is very patriotic nation. If you look at the Japanese in the 1960s, they would die for the country. But if you go to Japan nowadays, you look at the young, they don't want to work anymore. They will go for part-time, odd job. Japanese culture has changed. It's not as those days that you find in 20 years back, 30 years back. The youth throughout the world, the mindset has changed. We cannot bring back the past and expect them to have the same value like how we have values. Our children may have different values, but that does not mean that they are less patriotic.
So the way that they exhibit their patriotism may be different. Well, that's something to think about.
Culture has changed.
Culture has changed. All right, well, while we think about that, let's take another quick break and we'll come back. The gauntlet has been thrown and we'll pass the microphone to Tan Sri and see what he has to say. We'll be right back.